Hello and welcome to Objective Difficulty Skill Balance Impacts Perceived Balance but Not Behavior. I'm Sebastian Dieterding and I co-wrote this paper together with my colleague Joe Cutting at the University of York. As the title of the paper says, it is about balance, game balance, difficulty skill balance, which is widely recognized as one of the most important aspects of good game design. In fact, both in most game design textbook and in most academic textbook, we consider these truths to be self-evident, that a game whose difficulty is in balance with the player's skills is the most engaging, is the most enjoyable. And people make this claim usually either grounded in flow theory, where the mediating mechanism is attentive absorption, we're absorbed in the task, or based on self-determination theory, which also claims that optimally challenging tasks are the ones that maximize our feelings of competence. However, if you actually look into the evidence base, the theory base, you find there are lots of issues. There's lots of theoretical ambiguity, measurement issues, operationalization issues, false positive risks with pretty poor study designs in the past, lots of contradictory empirical results. So all is not as easy and as obvious as it looks. But even more importantly, what game designers in the main arguably care about is objective difficulty skill balance, some number like win rates or death rates or enemy strength that you can design for, that you can playtest with, that you can do dynamic difficulty adjustment with. But what theory is about and what most academics have tested is perceived balance, what feels balanced, not how much objective difficulty skill balance matters. So this is something that me and Joe Cutting and other colleagues recently actually did. We severely tested, and to our own surprise, we found a null result. We found that different difficulty skill ratios, objective ones, did not impact engagement and they did not impact enjoyment. Now, an important limitation of that first study was that we did not directly test theoretical claims which had all to do with particular mediators like competence in the case of STT or absorption in the case of flow, with then enjoyment or engagement and with perceived balance. So this is what in this paper we set out to test. We basically wanted to severely test sort of directly derived hypotheses, both from STT and from flow theory, where we hypothesized based on theory that an objectively balanced condition would show the highest perceived balance. It would feel the most balanced, the highest attentive absorption, the highest competence, the highest enjoyment, and the highest behavioral engagement. And in order to do that, obviously, we need to define what we mean with objective difficulty skill balance. We based that definition on earlier work by Csikszentmihalyi, who suggested that perceived balance most likely obtains under condition of equal player strength. So where me and my opponent are equally strong and therefore we're equally likely to win, or we're likely to come out at a draw, that is perceived as most balanced. So we use that as our definition, and we built our own test game with an AI controlled opponent so that we could manipulate the difficulty setting. Details about the game, it's a two-player Go-like game, is all in the paper. And basically we created an easy condition where the AI played weaker than the player, always losing by about 15 points. A balanced condition where the AI played towards a draw, and we mostly got draw results. And then a hard condition where the AI always played to win by about 15 points. And we actually found that yes, the AI reliably produced these kinds of results. In our first study, we also found that the different conditions actually feel different to players in cognitive pretest. And we found in a manipulation check that players did not notice the manipulation. So they did not notice that the AI played towards different strengths. What kind of study did we run? We ran a pre-registered study with a sample of about 309 participants based on a prior power simulation. It was a between subject online experiment where we recruited people from Prolific and randomly assigned them to either an easy AI or a balanced AI or a hard AI. Participants would first play the tutorial, then they would play 5 matches, then they would fill in a self-report questionnaire about the last match that they just played, and then they were offered to either exit or play another match. And on average, players took about 16 minutes to complete the whole experiment. We measured enjoyment with the IMI enjoyment interest subscale, balance, absorption, and competence with the PXI challenge, immersion, and mastery subscales, and engagement with whether player chose to play again when they were told that the experiment was over. They could now just stop and leave, or they could play another match if they wanted to. So what did we find? Well, the first positive and actually only positive result that we got is that An objectively balanced game, so an AI of equal strength, actually feels the most balanced according to our players. But afterwards, it was basically only disappointment. So our second result is that absorption actually is not the highest in the balanced condition compared to the easy or the hard one. The balance and the easy condition were equally absorbing for players. Thirdly, we found for competence, so testing STT, that competence was not highest in the objectively balanced condition. In fact, we found a linear relation where the easier the game was, the more competence players reported, which doesn't match the optimal challenge claim in STT, but STT makes a different parallel contradictory claim, which is the easier the condition, the more competence you feel, which actually matches this data set. Fourthly, we also did not find that enjoyment is highest in the balanced condition. Again, enjoyment was equal for the easy and the balanced condition. Only the hard condition was significantly less enjoyable. And fifth and finally, we found no statistical significant difference between the different conditions when it came to behavioral engagement, whether players chose to play again or not. But we found a tendency that the harder the condition, so contrary to the STT pattern, the more likely people were to choose to play again voluntarily. So what do we make out of all of these very confusing data patterns? Well, the top level takeaway for us is that balance likely doesn't work and doesn't matter as it is predicted and currently believed in most STT and flow-based research. And in order to unpack how it does, we think we need better specified theories. So, first takeaway is an equally strong opponent actually feels like the most balanced opponent, but it is not more absorbing, competence-inducing, or enjoyable than a weaker opponent. People have the same level of enjoyment and absorption and feelings of competence against easier opponents or even higher ones. Second, we found that balance, both objective and perceived balance in exploratory analysis, and competence don't matter for engagement. They have no impact for engagement, at least for short first-time single-player sessions like the ones that we tested. This suggests at a minimum that there are prior unacknowledged limitations or moderators for flow or STT, or there might be other mechanisms that we go into the paper, like uncertainty, novelty, or expectations, that can explain our data patterns. Third, we found that the STT model of optimal challenge maximizing competence is both logically incoherent and it is incoherent with the data. It doesn't hold. The perceived competence effect, the easier the game, the more competence you report, that matches our data, but not the optimal challenge account. And finally, we found that flow and STT were actually very hard to severely test or falsify. Each of them entailed contradictory claims. Neither of them specifies optimal balance, either perceived or objective quantitatively in a way that was easily derivable from theory, which suggests that games HCI may suffer from what people in other fields of the social and behavioral sciences right now have called a theory crisis, that is, a lack of well-specified theory to test. And with that, thank you very much.